So today's question reads, why do I think the rates of Alzheimer's and dementia are higher in autistic individuals? The research on this is really interesting because there is some relationship found in the literature. Individuals with autism diagnoses are about 2.5 times more likely in some studies to get a diagnosis of dementia later in life, including early onset dementia, when compared to the general population. In addition, literature has found overlapping genetic markers, with at least 3 different proteins identified as predicting both autism and dementia diagnoses. But here is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because the symptom overlap for diagnoses of both is also profound. For example, social isolation symptoms, food selection symptoms, and sensory overload symptoms have a huge amount of overlap for both diagnoses. And that means that we have a confound here. If somebody who is autistic already exhibits some of those symptoms throughout their life, then they're much more likely to trigger a dementia diagnosis later if the same symptoms are marked off on that checklist. Additionally, there are concepts such as cerebral reserve capacity, basically the amount of brain resources available to compensate for slights in the environment or other difficulties. If you have somebody who is autistic and already using a lot of their mental resources to mask and otherwise deal with sensory stuff, for example, they may be more likely to then have their dementia kind of set off, to use lay speak, when it starts to come in. Because remember, dementia is often thought to be an almost inevitability for anyone who lives long enough. Now, these are just some thoughts. If you look at the literature, nobody has figured out what this link is, just that it's observed. But it was a really interesting question, and I thought worth chatting about. If you have any thoughts about this, throw them in the comments below. As always, be really interested to hear what you think.